Hello, so welcome everyone to this first session of Tango Music Talk with Helmut. My idea is to provide a channel to make you get to know the tango music in a little bit more detail. Each session I will present a different tanda. The session starts with the presentation of the tanda by listening to it. If you're together, you can also dance to it. Afterwards, I go through some details and you can discuss with me. And at the end, we will hear the same tanda. I hope you enjoyed the tanda. What I love about this tanda, I call it the sandwich structure. The first and the fourth song have similarities, and the second and the third. So the first one and the last one were very typical D'Arienzo, as we expect him very often to be energetic, very rhythmic, very pushing. So it was El Flete when we had this rakatakatakatang, tatakatang, kararararam, and it continues with that. And the last one, La Pashanka, taranka, taka, tatam, taka, tatam, taka, tatam, taka, tatam. And it continues. It was 5 syncopations after each other. So why are the second and the third not so rhythmic? Or why do I put them together? It shouldn't be a tanda of similar songs. For me, something important to keep in mind is that tango music is balanced in itself. What do I mean? We have, for example, a very rhythmic part, and we have a part that is in contrast to this rhythmic part. So it's more relaxed, more legato, different colors. And although D'Arienzo is used to be a very rhythmic orchestra, it also has these other colors. And it's more that sometimes the song starts in a rhythmic way, and sometimes the rhythmic part is in a different part, which leads to the musical detail that each tango consists of different musical parts. Normally, we have at least an A part and a B part. And sometimes we also have a third part that we call C part, trio. Instrumental tangos normally have this trio form, so we have 3 different parts. If I go back to the first song, El Flete, we have the A part, that was this theme. Then we have the B part. So you can already hear there's a contrast between the first was pushy, taka 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 tam, and the second was ta dam ba da 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 dam, da 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 dam ba da da dam, and then we have the third part. So here we have the more energetic start, a contrast in the B part, and then suddenly we have the happy music. Tam, pam, rakataka, tam, 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 rakataka, tam, and so on. And this is very typical for tango in general, but in particular for D'Arienzo in the early recordings of his, which is 35, 36, 37, that he has these playful characters in his music, and he has a lot of contrast in between the parts. Let's have a look at the second song. The second song had this more lyric start, playful. What is the B part here? So here, the difference between the A part and the B part is not so big. What do we expect for the C part? More difference. So what was to be expected? The first 2 parts were more playful. The third part was rhythmic. We have the third and the fourth song where we have similar examples, but not to play too many songs and parts of songs at once. I go back to El Flete. So I said we have this dualism in tango. We have rhythmic energy, and yet we have maybe playful in the same song, or we have legato and we have staccato at the same time. An important thing to understand is articulation of the musician. Articulation means how the musical text is put into sound. And in the beginning, we have a very rhythmic, dry articulation. But then when it's repeated the third time, the violins take over the main theme. So suddenly, even within one phrase, we have two opposite colors. Let's listen to that from D'Arienzo directly. And then it's repeated. So although it's a very rhythmic piece, it has always a part in its phrase where we have a different character, where we can breathe and release a little bit. I said we have the big sections of the song, A, B, and C. And within one section, normally we have 4 phrases. And now we were listening to the first 2 phrases of the A part, which are afterwards repeated. Let's listen to the second part. After 4 phrases, the A part is finished, and we have the B part with the more calm legato theme. When the theme of the A part was repeated, we had a little embellishment from the piano. So we had rakataka taka taka tang pakang takang. So which gives the character of the music also, it's an A minor scale, so a little bit more, normally we say sad or not so happy for sure, but with this embellishment also here we have this dualism at the same time of the, from, yeah, 2 different characteristics. How we dance that, I want to talk later. Now, if you feel like commenting, if you have any questions, just give me a sign and I will stop talking and you can ask your question. If you just want to listen, I will continue talking about these 4 songs for the next 20 minutes. So whenever you have a question, don't be afraid of interrupting me. Yeah. So we have the B part that is in contrast. And also here we have this game of main theme, da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum. And there's a little gap where we have some embellishments happening, da-tang-kang-kang. And first we have the bandoneon and the violins that play together the main theme. And the piano does the embellishments. And then the bandoneons play it alone. And if we pay attention, then the color and the atmosphere changes a little bit. It was 2 times the same sentence in the musical sense. And if we are aware of this, our body will find a way how to express this. After these 2 lines, they were identical, we have a new line. What we have now is that we have 2 instrument groups talking to us at the same time. We have the bandoneons that go tang kang 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 kang, and we have a solo violin that is playing a low contracanto, that is underneath. So let's listen once and concentrate to hear the bandoneons. And now we listen to the same part and we can focus on the violin. The violin is only playing long notes and slowly getting higher. And by that, the intensity is increased. And then continues. New part, C part, another new musical theme, the playful one. Sometimes, or not only sometimes, but very often, D'Arienzo is called El Rey del Compás, the king of the beat. But for me, he's also the king of reduction. So here we have this playful theme, tam tam rakataka tam 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 rakataka tam, and then he is very reduced, rang kang 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 rang kang ka da da rang. And I think it's very interesting that here he doesn't do any embellishments. It's just very plain. Rang, kang. I play directly. Kang, 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 kang. And also here we have this, the first phrase, legato, tam, dam, daga, daga, dang, kang, kang, gaga, daga, dang. And the second phrase, rang, kang, kang, staccato. So we have this game, this playing with different articulations and creating different colors through articulation, also alternating with each phrase within one part. After the C part, what comes again? The A part. We already heard it. Here, nothing changed. So we hear, as at the beginning, first the rhythmic articulation, and then the violins, the last time it's repeated with the legato sound. Afterwards, when it's repeated the second time, a little thing changes. I play it for you. Piano embellishments. And did you hear we had again this violin underneath? So here we create, for me, I think of a strong red color when I hear this violin, but maybe you think of a different color. But to the contrast of the accentuated rhythmic theme, we have the contracanto, which creates a different color, a different flavor for the same music. And this is also very typical for D'Arienzo. So sometimes when we're thinking D'Arienzo has to be rhythmical, okay, the song starts, and we can say, rhythmical, powerful, probably D'Arienzo. But maybe the second song that we heard, we wouldn't say, it's so rhythmical and so powerful. Maybe we wouldn't recognize that it's D'Arienzo. So another characteristic of D'Arienzo is this violin sound that very often in the fourth line, maybe you don't want to count when you dance, but you will develop the feeling for these parts once you know that they are there. And each part has 4 phrases. So shortly before the one section is ending, there might be this violin sound coming. Let's listen to it again. the B part is repeated and nothing changes. Why is it interesting? Because even if you don't know the music that well, once you hear the beginning of the song, you might know how the song will end. So we heard already the B part, 30 seconds, and within the B part, the phrases are repeated, but also within the piece itself, the B part is repeated. So now, the second time that we hear it, we could already know, we will have this break with embellishments. And then comes again this part where we have the violin contracanto and the bandoneon continuing with the main theme playing the rhythmical part. Now, the last part. Sometimes the C part is also repeated. In this case, no. In this case, we have the A part coming again a third time, but we have the bandoneons that play the variaciones on the theme of the A part. So we had rakataka taka taka tang, and now we have daga 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 daga. Hard to repeat talking, but listen to it directly. Sometimes we tend to hurry a lot and feel a bit stressed of this music. And maybe you noticed here at the end, there was a little break. And then it starts again. So in the variaciones, very often two phrases are put together and the bandoneons play without interruption. But then at the end of the second phrase, also the bandoneons need to relax a little bit, and we have 2 beats to relax at least. So when we're dancing variaciones, don't forget to search for these moments when we can have this little break. Then it continues. And finished. So variaciones, a signature of Juan D'Arienzo as well. In my example of today, the tanda has 2 songs that finish with variaciones and 2 songs that finish with something else. So we have it often, but often in tango means between 30 and 50% maybe. And yeah, let's have a closer look at the Don Esteban. That was the playful contrast. Do you remember what I told you about the violin of D'Arienzo? So this is also something very typical of D'Arienzo, and here we have it already right at the opening, which is not so usual, but in tango, yeah, we always are surprised sometimes. And also here, you remember the C part of El Flete. There also, they started legato, the first phrase, and then the second phrase was staccato, and the third phrase was legato again, and the fourth phrase was staccato. Here we have something similar. It first starts legato, and it continues with staccato, and then it stays staccato. For me, it's another beautiful example of how the same text can create very different colors. So we have ta-da-da-dum, ba-dum, ba-da-dum, the first time legato, and then when it's repeated, rakataka, katang, katang, kang. Rhythmic melody is it called, this articulation. But then we are waiting for some more rhythmic parts for D'Arienzo, the C part. I said at the beginning, El Rey del Compás, the king of the beat. And here is a passage where we hear very clear the marcato in 4. Dum, 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 dum. Here? Okay. And yet, sometimes he plays with stopping it. You felt it? So we had rak, and here also the marcato was stopping. And that is interesting to play. D'Arienzo, from the rhythmical accompaniment in this period of 36, it's rather simple. But sometimes he plays with omitting the beat, and that creates an interesting effect of suspension here, because we have this tak, kada, gadang, and then it continues. Let's continue listening. The same musical phrase was repeated, and first the bandoneons played it staccato. Now, that was the bandoneon. Now the violins played legato. Before we had this interruption of the beat, tarang, tarakadang, karang, stop. So it was a pausa. Now we have a syncopation happening there. So sometimes pausa and syncopation and accompaniment can have a very similar effect. Now we had the A part, the B part, the C part. What comes again? Most probably the A part. How did the A part sound? Da-dang, ka-dang, ka-ka-dang, kang, and so on. It started again as at the beginning, but then instead of having the theme as before, we had the violins playing a new theme, contracanto. And in this case, the contracanto replaced the main theme. So now when the violins enter, we just have a simple accompaniment. And the violins. You remember? First legato, then staccato. And we had the same game, let's say musical game before. So we heard the B part, like in El Flete. It was interesting, maybe hard to catch when you hear it for the first time, but fortunately, D'Arienzo repeats it almost the same way later, 1 minute. So then we hear it the second time and we could play, and we have first the legato mood, and suddenly and then we can adapt to the staccato. Let's continue. You hear, in this tango, we hear the C part another time. So we don't have variaciones like in el flete, but we have the C part a second time. And we have again this game between bandoneon's first rhythmic and then the violins playing the same theme in a melodic way. But the C part, it doesn't finish. We still have another time the A part. And now we hear both ta ta ka ta ka ta ka ta gang gang gang. I play from the beginning the first theme. And then we have at the ending again. And it's gone. A calm, joyful end. The third tango. Any questions until now? No. The third tango, Lorenzo, starts without a melody. How can it be? How can a song be without melody? Let's listen. So normally this would be something ta-tang, 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 an accompaniment pattern. But here, as it's the only thing, it becomes the main theme. And also the interesting thing is that it doesn't start on one, but it starts with and 2 and 4 and 2 and 4, ta-tang, ta-tang, playing with offbeat. How does it continue? So it's repeated the same, but they do some embellishments on him. Ta-ta-ka-ta-ta. Let's listen. First we had ta-tang, 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 ka-tang, and now ka-tagadang, ka-tagadang, ka-tagadang. I would have to practice to reproduce that. What is the main difference if we have a melody in the normal sense or just a rhythmical theme? A melody normally has a development, so it's aiming for something and having a suspension and having a release. So by that, it creates a wave. Whereas if we have a rhythmical pattern, like the comparsita as well, like Asosiego, like 9 de Julio, we have something that repeats and can be at the same intensity for long. Most probably 20 seconds or maximum 30 seconds. So here we had this repetitive on the same level. And now when it comes to the B part, da-dang, ka-da-ga-da-ga-da-dang, we have again these waves. And here, if I play it now again, pay attention, sometimes we have no accompaniment at all. So to have the contrast to the A part, where we had a very clear repetitive pattern, now in the B part, we have more of the wave and even no accompaniment. Do you hear there was always one bar where there was no accompaniment? For me, it feels like exclamation mark, Doppelpunkt. Tagang, katang, katatang, brrrung, and then it continues again, and 2 times. And violin, low register. And the main theme continues, a little bit more piano, and the violin, I would say, is a little bit more in getting the focus. You remember El Flete? It was also in the B part, always also in line 3 and 4. So here we have a very similar structure like in El Flete, the first song. Then after the B part comes and then comes again something. What was that? It was for sure a bandoneon solo, and I think it was an A part, and it was short. It was just 2 phrases, 14 seconds. So the A part, it was very reduced, you remember? Now, when it gets repeated, it got a solo that created a melody on top of it. But then we don't recognize it because first it was just a rhythmical pattern. Now it's a new melody and that we hadn't heard before. Now comes the C part. In this C part, we have this sandwich form. So the first phrase, very rhythmical. The second phrase is legato. But then does not come the rhythmical phrase again, but comes mirrored the second phrase. So we have 1 and 4th together and 2nd and 3rd. Listen to it one more time. Rhythmic. Legato. And now again, legato. And to finish, the rhythmical from the beginning. So this, in tango, either we have 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 3 are similar, 2 and 4 are similar. Or we have 1 and 4 are similar, 2 and 3. Or what we also had in El Flete was that 1 and 2 are the same, are repeated, and 3 and 4 are the same or similar. So these are the 3 most common patterns that we had in all the 3 pieces until now. Very typical marcato in 4 of D'Arienzo, and a new melody from a violin. Again, I think it's the A part where we have 2 phrases of a solo. You remember there was a C part. In here also we have two times the C part. What I love about the C part, and also typical for D'Arienzo, is that he starts legato, but then he plays the last one short, and that changes the effect. Listen to it one more time. And the third time, then he stays. And that is also something very common in music. 3 times, 2 times, one way, and the third different. So 2 times he's playing with having the last one sharp and short, and the third time he stays and he finishes. So also this tango finishes with a quiet understatement. We get back to the very simple accompaniment pattern that is presented alone. And for the last 2 phrases of the song, we have the pianist playing a solo on top of this pattern, who is the pianist of D'Arienzo in the year 36, Rodolfo Biaggi. The last song starts with a very rhythmic syncopated pattern at the beginning. And then it's repeated. So here we have the case that we, like in El Fleta, the first 2 lines form a bigger phrase, and then they are repeated the same way. Let's continue listening. What do we expect? We heard 4 phrases of the A part. So normally we would expect the B part. But we continue hearing the A part. So here we have a special case that although it's an instrumental, it's originally a sang tango, and the A part is repeated after each other. So we have 8 phrases with this A part theme. But what is interesting is that first it was very dry. Also, it's not exactly the same. So when it comes after the 5th line, it's a little bit different. It's still rhythmic, but let's continue. Do you hear? So one time it was very rhythmically accentuated, the syncopation. And then we had it suddenly legato. And this I think we should keep in mind if we are dancing to this music. So our steps might be the same, but the energy in our body, how we do the steps, the quality of our movement will be influenced with these different shading in the music as well. And I think this is the biggest impact of the music, that it changes the quality of how we move. Of course, sometimes we have some interesting rhythmical patterns that we can relate to our steps, but more often it's just the way we move, not so much which kind of steps, which kind of figures we're dancing. So after this double A part, we have the B part. And that was the 4th line of the double A part, and here came the violin. So this violin solo at the end of the A part is very typical for D'Arienzo. Also, like in El Flete, the beginning was very rhythmic. The B part is a contrast to this rhythmical A part. And also, like in El Flete, the bandoneons take that. Also, like in El Fleta and the other examples, we had the violin coming in the B part as well for the third and the fourth line. Now, is there a C part? No, there is no C part because it's an instrumental. So it's because it's a canción form. So it's an instrumental form of the sang tango, originally sung. But now when it's repeated, and it was this very rhythmical theme, we have a violin contracanto. So we had 4 phrases of violin contracanto, first low register, then higher register. And when the violin switched to the higher register, suddenly we started to hear the rhythmical main theme again more clearly. So it was really beautiful how before, not to disturb the violins, they reduced the accompaniment and the main theme almost vanished. But then when the violins went higher, so it's easier to hear the difference between the violins and the rest of the orchestra because of the exposure of the tessitura, then it gets more rich again and we hear both voices at the same time. This I would like to repeat. So one time, accompaniment very reduced, violins in the focus. And slowly the rhythm gets back. And we get back to the original main theme. And again, a very short contracanto at the end, you heard. And at the end, we had double portion of variaciones. I cut the piece and I see it in front of me, and we had 5 parts of the A part. So the orchestra made it not regular because 4 was already the double portion we had at the beginning. But yeah, when we dance, we will probably not hear it. We will expect the end, maybe already after the first variaciones. But then it doesn't stop, and we have another round of variaciones. So that was my tanda of today. 1 hour has passed. So I talked a lot. Nobody asked any questions. Now is the moment. Any comments? Do you like this music? Do you recognize it as D'Arienzo? Was it clear already before? Is there anything you discovered now that you would like to share?
Well, let me just say a few words that, of course, I like the music, and most of it, I love the La Pajanka because of the syncopation. It's really amazing. It's so overwhelming and present, but it's also lovely to try to dance to it and incorporate it in your dance, don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's another song, Homero, that was one of the most popular songs of the year. It's the next year, 37. I can play it very shortly. Which has also like syncopation for the whole A part. I think if you put the whole tanda of these super syncopated songs, and also in the next year, 37, we have Gasso Ciego, that is also, of course, syncopated in the beginning. Not that strong, not as La Pachanca or Homero, but still, of course, one could also do a tanda of like hardcore syncopation, full power. That was the idea of the sandwich tanda, that we have some very strong rhythmic songs at the beginning and the end, and in the middle also some more playful songs, not to get wasted with a partner right away. But of course, there are many ways to build a tanda. So thanks for tonight, and see you soon.
La noche que te fuiste, más triste que ninguna, palideció la luna y se tornó más gris mi soledad. ¿Por qué lloras acaso mi presencia frente al dolor también a vos te apena?